It finally happened. I have wanted a Nikon D700 for about 8 years, and I've always been $1 short or a day late, or I have the money and I'm right on time, but it's just been abused to the point that I have no confidence in it, and I don't want such a damaged, awful version of the D700 to be my first experience and risk spoiling my impressions of it. I'm not going to talk too much about this camera right now. Anybody who's watching this probably knows a lot about it. You understand the legends, you understand the legacy, you understand what it is, and there's a reason why you're watching this video. But it's now 2024. I came across this Nikon D700 for $125 US. I really cannot explain why it was so cheap other than the guy just priced it that way. Basically, the story was he is a full-time wedding photographer here in Taiwan. This was a company camera, and every few years they upgrade their cameras and their gear and everything else. And I'm not sure if you're aware of how the wedding industry and the photography that goes with the weddings works in Taiwan, but it's a very unique and pretty cool process. But I won't go into that. It's a different story. But with this was a camera that the company had purchased brand new back in 2008. And at some point it was removed from primary camera status and moved to secondary camera status. And then eventually it was no longer even a backup camera, but it was still in the dry box somewhere. And as they were going through their stock and clearing things out, I think maybe they were moving locations, I'm not sure. He came across this and realized that, oh wow, we still have this old D700. He fired off a few shots, confirmed everything still works. Okay, well, might as well sell it. So he wasn't trying to get anything by me. He was being unbelievably straightforward, unbelievably honest. He was actually downplaying this quite a bit, saying it's an awful condition. It's really, really beat up. The skin's falling off of it. The screen doesn't look so good. It's probably got over 200,000 shutter actuations, but we haven't checked. Just be aware, this is this is maybe just to have it for sentimental value. But it's $125 and it's a D700. So I said I want it. And I was very, very lucky. I saw the post just by happenstance. I'm not even in the habit of checking for cameras here lately, but for some reason I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to check old DC View, which is a website here in Taiwan dedicated just to camera sales. I haven't even checked it at all. I even looked at it in months. And I said, oh, I'll check that. I just, who knows why. And as soon as I clicked on it, I saw D700 for $125. I thought that's got to be a misprint or something. And I opened the ad, and he's here in Taichung. He's actually right near my son's school, and he was available right around the time my son gets out of school, and I pick up my son from school anyway. So he said that I had actually messaged him about 5 minutes after he posted this. So that's the only reason why I got so lucky is the timing just lined up perfectly. But I'm going to open it now and tell you why I'm so pleased so far with this camera for only $125, despite the fact that it's a D700. One is that it comes with the original box. As you can see, old Nikon D700. And the box itself, although not pristine, it doesn't have any tears or rips or holes. It's in pretty good shape overall. I was also lucky that when I bought my 5D Classic, it came with the original box. So it's good for just sentimental reasons, but open it here, and first thing I'm going to do is remove this, and there it is. I'm going to set this aside for a moment. The Nikon D700. Now remember, he was telling me how this thing was just completely beat to hell, very little life left in it, very obvious signs of use, maybe just have it for sentimental reasons. The skin's falling off, and as I look at this, I can see that yes, it's dirty. Looks like most of this though can probably just be cleaned up. Even with the skin, I can see slight slight signs of it starting to come up a little bit here, but it's not peeling off. It's still attached. Same back here. I can see little signs of bubbling, but it's attached. Even the bottom, he said the bottom was completely, all the paint was worn off. And as I look, it's actually mostly still there. It's just the corners, as you'd expect, just from handling for so many years, have paint worn off. So he was really downplaying the condition. This thing obviously is not pristine, but the screen is in good shape. It's dirty, but the screen seems fine. All the buttons are there. I did test this before I bought it, and I can confirm that all the buttons are still clicky and they work the way they should. All the switches function. And this is the design that to me is iconic, classic Nikon. I don't know what it is about it aesthetically, but to me this was the perfect look for a Nikon. It's one of the things that first drew me to the Nikon D700 was this tall body, very prominent forehead here. Yes, it has the screen, which I like. But there's two things, and I don't know why these always stood out to me as being so special, but the two things, one is I love this setup here. When it comes to manual controls, I really like that I can take my index finger, the same way I'd grab this to twist, I can just take the edge of my index finger and press down on this button and then use my thumb to roll and change the selection between single or, you know, different shooting modes basically. And that's mirror up all the way over to the other side. I can just hit a button and it's specifically dedicated to white balance. I hit this button and it's specifically dedicated to quality. But most importantly, my favorite is that I can very quickly change the ISO just by hitting this dedicated ISO button. Now, of course, a lot of cameras like my Canons, they have a kind of version of that where there's over here on this side, there's a button that you press for ISO, but it's kind of a dual purpose button. For some reason, having a dedicated button over here that just says ISO and in this control wheel layout, there's something aesthetically very pleasing about that. It's just, it really, really appeals to me. And the second thing, other than this, being, I think it looks good and it's very functional, and I really, really like this design of this switch right here, is this, the actual eyepiece, the viewing window. I don't know what it is, but there is something absolutely beautiful about a big round viewing window. Having that round eyepiece, that perfect circle, that large perfect circle for an eyepiece, it sets the entire camera on the right path. I had the Nikon D600 and I avoided getting the 600 or any of those similar cameras like the 750 or anything else for a very, very long time, specifically because they no longer had this body style. They were, you know, lower grade and they were squished down and they weren't as tall, and it had the more squat, low profile head here, and it had that typical square shaped eyepiece. And I think not only does it not look as good, I think it's actually really ugly. Aesthetically, I think those are very ugly cameras. And I don't like the way they function as well either. But when I bought my Nikon D800 years ago, so I actually owned the 800 before I ever owned the 700. When I bought my Nikon D800, this is what I loved. It had that nice big round viewing window, and it had my dedicated ISO button and these controls over here. So, but again, if you look at the body for a Nikon D800 versus this Nikon D700, the 700 is a little bit taller. It's a little bit more, I would say it feels more confident in its styling, whereas the D800 looks like it's trying to be less prominent. It's trying to stand out. It's trying to be a little bit, it's trying to stand out less. It's trying to be a little bit less noticeable. This isn't as prominent. These lines are not as sharp and angled. This is just, to me, a very beautiful camera. So I have this camera. This is the first thing I got, of course, for the $125 was the original box and the camera itself. And let's just take a look. Of course, everything's great. Set this aside. Now, if I open this, I have all my goodies. So first over here, look at this, man. The size of the booklets they used to give you with these things was great. I mean, even right there, right off the bat, it's showing me little diagrams, little photos of all the things I'm going to have. It's telling me where everything's at. There is just such great in-depth information. This is one of the things I really miss about basically every product you could buy years ago, is that they put a lot of time and effort into very good user manuals that really did serve a purpose, and you really could learn a lot from. You could be a totally new photographer who had never owned a real camera before, end up basically being an expert with at least the hardware side of it just by reading these manuals. And depending on what it was you were buying and when it came out, a lot of these things even had diagnostics procedures in them. Like they would tell you, oh, if you're having this problem, maybe it's this, check this. These old school manuals were awesome. Let's see, this, it's not the manual, but it's something. I don't really know what this is. This one's not in Mandarin though, this one's in Japanese, so Windows, Macintosh. Maybe this has to do with the software that you put on the computer. Let's see. This is multi-language. You guys probably know what that is. I have no idea what this is. Basically the same type of thing, another version of what appears to be the same thing. This is the original warranty card. And the guy was very nice. He was showing me everything about the camera. He was showing me all the stuff. He wanted to confirm that this was the original warranty card. This is where they bought it. This is the serial number for the camera, and he flipped the camera over and confirmed, yes, it's the right serial number. That's one of the things I love about buying cameras in Taiwan, is that sellers are really honest here. It's part of Taiwanese culture in general, is that people are very friendly. They're just very nice. They smile a lot. They're very helpful. But also, people are pretty straightforward and honest. It is unbelievably rare that somebody tries to get one over on you, especially when it comes to camera gear. People are notorious for saving the boxes, saving all the paperwork, being very, very upfront with any tiny little imperfection there might be, so that you don't feel like they tried to hide anything from you. So I feel pretty spoiled typically when I buy stuff here in Taiwan. I don't have to worry about it at all. If they say it's good, I know it's going to be good. It's Nikon at the heart of the image. Yep, there's the stamp. I love having this stuff. There's still some more stuff in here. Wow. I didn't take all this out before. This is my first time actually taking all this stuff out. So, yeah, Nikon software suite, however you say that. Different languages. Is this like a field guide? A little pocketable field guide, maybe? What is this? It talks about transferring stuff to the computer. I guess this maybe is like a view NX. This must be talking about transferring stuff in the software, except it is telling me about controls on the camera itself. This has got to be like a little mini reference guide, just like less in-depth than the owner's manual, but still stuff you might want to keep in your bag with you. That's cool. All right, so then I have the original charger, actual Nikon, the original charger. It's not an off-brand, it's not aftermarket. He gave me an 8 gigabyte SanDisk brand, which is, I love SanDisk. He gave me an 8 gigabyte compact flash card, as well as a SanDisk Extreme 16 gigabyte compact flash card, which is cool. These are getting harder to find, and again, finding them in these lower capacities, which I kind of like for older cameras, and finding them in good name brands is just, it's getting more and more difficult. So the fact that it came with both of these, I'm loving. I have a few compact flash cards, but the fact that this already came with its own means that I don't have to take any of my old ones and decide which camera I'm going to use them for. I like to format them to a certain camera and then only use them for that camera typically. This is an actual Nikon branded battery here. Yep, Nikon ENEL3E. Oh, some Bert and Ernie stuff going on. That's cute. I have a second battery, also Nikon. No Bert and Ernie on this one. Yeah, Nikon branded. So 2 original Nikon branded batteries is, again, also cool and something people here take pride in. Some old plastic stuff. I guess the original plastic the camera and everything else was wrapped in when it was new. This is the actual cord for the charger. Nikon D700 FX. You know, it's funny because I've never really been a big fan of these camera straps from the factory. The length has never suited me the way that I like to wear a camera strap. The length has never been quite right. I don't like the cumbersome way that you have to connect these things or adjust them. Also, years ago, I always thought it was kind of goofy. You looked very much like a tourist if you wore the camera strap hanging off your neck like a necklace, and especially if it was the factory camera strap with the name of your camera on it. I always just thought, like, man, there's nothing that shouts I'm a tourist more than, if, for example, if you have a Nikon D700 and you're wearing a Nikon D700 camera strap around your neck like a necklace. But it's funny because as I've gotten older and these things are now becoming older and older, and this D700 as an example is no longer the modern cool camera, and now it's a retro throwback. Now I see this stuff and I actually really like it, and I'm actually encouraged, and I want to put it on the camera and I want to use it just because I'm so proud of the fact that I have this old school cool Nikon D700. And it seems like very few people these days wear these factory camera straps. Everybody uses, there are so many. There's one that I have all the time. It's one of those slide whatever. I forget the name brand, but it's, you slide it very quickly to adjust it, and it hooks in with a little push button things. You've probably seen it in my other videos, but so actually, if you want to stand out and be different, having an old school DSLR with the old school factory camera strap, that actually would be a statement of independence these days, which is pretty cool. Oh yeah, there we go. And this must be something about, I don't know. I want to say data transfer, but probably just viewing or something. I mean, this is an image, like an AV image cord here, so it must be about connecting the camera to a TV or something. I'm not sure. Interesting. So here it is. I got the original cords, 2 original Nikon batteries. I have 2 separate flash cards. I have all the original paperwork and books and disc, all that stuff. And then, of course, the strap, Nikon D700 strap, plus the D700 itself for 125 bucks. Wait, this was the first video. I'm going to put all this back. But yeah, the Nikon D700. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I'll tell you now, the guy was downplaying everything about this camera. He was, again, saying, oh, the skin's falling off, most of the paint is missing, it's in terrible condition. I've not checked the shutter actuations, but it's probably got over 200,000. It's very plausible that it has over 200,000 shots, so beware of that. Now, that doesn't initially bother me, especially if the price is good enough, because I personally know people here in Taiwan that still use the D700 full time, and they have over 400,000 shutter actuations on a D700, and it's still going strong, gives them no problems. And of course, you can look up stories online of people having close to 1 million shutter actuations, and not being a problem. So obviously they can technically fail at any time. It's luck of the draw. But even at 200,000, I thought, hey, at this price, I'm willing to risk it. But when I got home, I took a photo and used the APS-C lens, because these do have a DX crop mode. If you use a D700 in DX mode, it gives you about 5.1 megapixels, which again, if you aren't blinded by spec sheets and numbers, 5 megapixels is still plenty to do some really, really great stuff. But with the DX crop mode, I used my son's lens, that super zoom VR lens. I took a photo and I uploaded it and I checked it, and actually this camera has 120,000 shutter actuations, which, considering it's 16 years old and it was used professionally, it's not a lot. So I'm pretty excited. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you later.